Welcome to the Faith Together podcast from the Center for Faith and Family at Olivet Nazarene University. If you believe that passing down Christian faith is essential for the next generation, you are in the right place. Enjoy conversations with guests who are faith practitioners, parents, caregivers, pastors, counselors, and many more. You'll enjoy practical tools and community for passing down Christian faith to your children and grandchildren.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Faith Together podcast. We're so glad to have you with us here today. I'm Lindsey, joined by my co-host, Leon. Hi, Leon.
Hello, Lindsey. Good to see you today.
Good to see you, too. And we're thrilled to be continuing in a special series called Be a Blessing. And I would say, Leon, this series has been a blessing to me. What about you?
It has. And I've learned a lot. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to have Dave Ferguson on a couple weeks ago and to learn more about how this blessed idea works and really how natural it is once you kind of get rolling on it.
Yeah, I loved what he shared. He goes, this is just simply all about being friends. It's a great course in how to make friends with someone else. So I think that's great. I think for those of you joining us maybe for the first time today, or you have jumped in on this series in the middle of it, we want to just give you a quick recap of what we mean by the term bless. So Dave Ferguson's book, B.L.E.S.S, shares loving your community and your neighbors in this way with the acronym B.L.E.S.S. Begin with prayer, listen, eat, serve, and share your story. And so last week, we loved having a couple of guests with us, some good friends of yours, right, Leon?
That's right, yeah. The lead pastor and spiritual formation pastor at K1, where I am on staff. And we got an opportunity to learn from them what K1 is doing using the B.L.E.S.S as a congregation.
Yeah.
And really that it's not really a program as much as it is learning a particular lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so they had sermon series on that over the 7 or 8 weeks, a little bit at the beginning to introduce the series. And then this Sunday we wrap it up with kind of a celebration.
I love that.
So, but really it's about transforming the way we think about being followers of Christ and how God has called us as part of the Great Commission to share that love with other people. And, you know, the old-fashioned way of knocking on the door and saying, do you know Jesus? Can I tell you about him? While I suppose it's effective in some instances, I think most of us cringe at the thought of having to do that.
Yeah.
And this has taken advantage of relationships that we have and really using the relationship that we have with someone, showing love for them and loving them so much that we want them to know the same Jesus we know.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of relationships, today we have 2 more guests joining us to talk about how we see the B.L.E.S.S practices at work in relationships with college students. So many of you know one of the joys of my life that I share a lot about on the podcast here is my role as a resident director here at Olivet Nazarene University. And this year in our residential life program, we have been focusing on a mission statement to see, value, know, and care for all students that live and study here at Olivet. And part of that initiative are different committees of RDs, resident directors, that work together to support that mission in lots of different ways. And I get the privilege of serving on the training committee, which means we put together different resources to help our resident assistants, RAs. And maybe if you're listening and you're an alumni or you've been an RA before, you're going to be like, oh, I remember the RA trainings. Those are always so much fun. We have a big one at the beginning of the year, Leon. I mean, it's huge. It lasts like a month. Not exactly a month, but it feels like it.
I've actually participated in some of the training of those.
Oh, that's right. You have. I'm so sorry. I forgot.
No, that's all right. That's always fun.
It is fun. It's so much energy at the beginning of the year.
Because oftentimes the RAs are kind of some of the elite students.
They are.
I mean, they're students that are really invested.
Yes.
Usually good academic students.
Right. Yes.
But really invested and care about others. So they're fun to work with.
They are. They're a blast. That's what makes the job really, really rewarding. So we have our big RA training at the beginning of the school year, but then we needed to continue to find ways to keep our RAs on point and trained throughout the year so they don't lose that beginning spark. And so that's what the training committee does. And as a training committee, we came across the Be a Blessing book by Dave Ferguson, and we've used it in some training this fall. And so I invited two of my colleagues that serve on the training committee as RDs, Zach Tamez and Abby Bagley, here today. Hi, Zach and Abby. We're glad you're here.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, so glad to have you here. And so I'm going to have them introduce themselves and just share where they serve here at Olivet and why they're excited to be here for this conversation. So we'll start with you, Zach.
No, thank you. I'm Zach. I'm in my 6th year in residential life at Olivet. Post-graduation, I did serve as an RA for 3 years. I was one of the elite students. As Leon says. I know, apparently. I didn't...
They say, res life's kind of like dog years. So you kind of have.
You're so right.
You have a lot of experience
there. So much experience. That's awesome. Yeah, if we want to turn this into a counseling session, I can just talk about my day-to-day.
We all could. Leon's going to be like, what?
No, it's been good. I'm the role I stepped into when I first graduated and became a resident director as I was serving in Hills Hall. I'm still there. It's 150 upperclassmen guys. I get to work with 8 resident assistants. And caring for those people that live there. Upperclassmen are just absolutely awesome. And Abby does freshmen, so that's why I keep talking about how awesome upperclassmen are. I love to see them kind of as they're grappling with their faith, especially their freshman year, then like sophomore, junior, senior years when they really get to start to live it out and like take ownership of it themselves. And so getting to see them realize their calling and what God's calling them to and what they're passionate for, that's just a huge joy of the job. This past year, I got to step into the role of Director of Residential Life Operations, which gets to help coordinate the training committee and all those like sweet efforts there. So I love mission and vision and doing these things. And so when Lindsey brought together this B.L.E.S.S series and how that affects what we do in Res Life, knowing with the C, value, know, and care, that just fits so well within that. And I know we can talk about it a little bit later, but my RAs have really just grasped that and been able to use that within the res hall.
That's awesome. Zach, we appreciate so much of what you bring to the team, and
thank you.
So glad to have you here as, a coworker, but also a friend. So thanks for being here today.
Yeah, that's good. And before Abby introduces herself, for those who were listening last week, when I talked about my trip to Oregon to the Bible Project.
Yes.
Zach went with me.
Yeah.
They were travel buddies.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
so just we won't get sidetracked in a rabbit trail here.
Yeah.
But just briefly, you want to say anything about that experience?
Oh man.
At the Bible Project?
Yeah, it was really, really cool. I mean, I was thinking about it after our trip. I would say when it comes to like the commentaries I use for preaching and stuff like that. But my very first step when I start a series is to see what Bible Project resources are there. And so we went to like the Sermon on the Mount. So I really started with like Matthew and got to hear their breakdown of that. So it was absolutely awesome. What I loved was their goal is to make everything free for everyone and accessible. And it's so easy. I actually literally recommended it to a student when we got back who was trying to figure out the next Devo they were doing. I'm like, why don't you just start with these videos, these classes that you talked a lot about? And so I enjoyed it. It was a ton of fun. And of course, all the beautiful Portland things that we got to do.
We really had a good time together.
That was perfect timing that we could talk about it. That's awesome.
All right. Sorry, Abby. We kind of left you sitting over there. So share with us a little bit about you, Abby.
Yeah. So my title's a little shorter than Zach's, but still really cool. My name's Abby. I'm entering in my 2nd year being a resident director. I've actually been an RA in Parrott for my 2 years in college. So my sophomore and junior year, I was an RA, and then I became the RD of Parrott. So Parrott's just kind of home to me. And I love freshmen. Freshmen are really cool.
Yeah, so prayers for Abby because
cooler than
the title may be shorter, but the work is a lot bigger. She's killing it.
And that's true. I love freshmen. I love seeing them kind of transition from this dependent youth almost and into college, and they get to transition on doing their own things and learning how to do things. And sometimes it's as simple as doing their own laundry, but they get to learn it. And I just love seeing how much they get to learn and how much they love being in the halls, and just their dependence on us is really cool. And getting to kind of kick them out of the nest a little bit, but all in love. And it's a really, really sweet and beautiful blessing that I get to be their RD.
I love to say, I love leading the girls closer to Jesus and closer to common sense.
Yes, amen.
So
That's an average day as an RD,
I need
right?
a sign of that.
Yes. So as we think about the B.L.E.S.S practices, we've read the book. We did some training on this as a Res Life team this summer and then into the fall. But you think about those 5 things: begin with prayer, listening, eat, serve, and share your story. What has your experience looked like with those concepts as an RD, and how have they impacted your life as you come in contact with the college students under your care? So let's start with you, Zach.
Yeah. What I really love about this series is I haven't actually had the opportunity to read the book, and so I don't know if that just cancels out my whole part of this. But as I was kind of like looking through it, it's kind of same thing with the Bible Project. It's so easy and accessible. Because like with the Begin with Prayer, one of the things I really, really try to teach my RAs every single year is, if we can start each day with the prayer, Holy Spirit, what do you have for me today? We're beginning on a step towards like in the middle of what God's trying to do. And so if we can be aware of what God's doing, and that's really the heart of the beginning with prayer, is making sure we're aligned with what God is wanting to do. Chaplain a couple years ago would quote Jesus's eyes to see and ears to hear thing. And so we're trying to be attentive and sensitive to what the Holy Spirit is doing. So for me as a leader, it's always been really sitting with the Begin with Prayer, and then one of my RAs, in terms of like taking ownership of what was taught in training, his whole like semester word has been just story. He's been asking his residents, when they get meetings together on like a one-on-one basis, like lunch or coffee or dinner or anything like that, it'll just be, hey, tell me your story. And he's been really grateful for like what comes to mind with that question. Is it the story that they tell themselves, or is it their story from how they got here, or what they're currently going through, or any of those different aspects? So it's very open-ended, and whatever kind of comes to mind has been really cool, because that's what's important to that person's heart. And so being able to kind of see that answered there, and of course, like the job is really driven by listening. I ask my RAs all the time, the heart of the position is to just create space. Are you doing that effectively? Even if it maybe didn't yield the results you wanted at that time, like if your event only had 5 people there, are you creating spaces for people to be able to like live in what they're wanting to do, feel safe around you? And so part of the process of doing that is setting up spaces where you're just listening wholeheartedly without an agenda. And that's what I really, really appreciate. Again, it's easy, it's accessible. And I don't even know if my RAs are like they fully know what they're doing in that. But they've definitely find themselves like really thriving within this model.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And when we name something as simple as beginning with prayer and listening, it reframes our perspective, and it helps us to validate what our RAs are already doing, and to come alongside them and say, you're doing a great job. Like, look, you've made space to listen. And it's good for us as RDs too, because sometimes you can feel like I need to be doing more, but then you realize I listened to them. I created that space, and that's the most important thing. So I love that. Abby, what about you? How have the B.L.E.S.S concepts made an impact on you personally, or grown your faith in some way?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the B.L.E.S.S just encompasses everything as an RA and everything in Res Life, from team meetings of me creating the space to listen to my RAs, but also them listening to me. Like, it's a two-way street. One of the first RA meetings I had this year was me sharing my testimony with them. And I opened up with prayer, and we had a snack, and then I shared my testimony, and they listened. And just how receptive they were to it was so beautiful. And also that I could share with them of how to do it. Like, here I am sharing my story with them, so they can go out and share their story with their residents and their friends and the people they come in contact with. I feel like it's just been so beautiful to be able to even have like language to describe what we do, how we do it, what it looks like. And in the word of a blessing, like to bless someone, to be a blessing, like how Christ fitting is that?
Yeah.
And so even just on one-on-ones, like I love empowering my RAs to be a blessing because they get to go eat a meal, pray over it, and then listen to their resident, share their story, hear the resident share their story. And the relationships and the stories that I've heard come out of one-on-ones, heard come out of meetings, like have just been so heart-fulfilling and so meaningful this year. Almost more meaningful than any of my other years in res life. And I think it's the language to describe what we do and why we do it.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm sitting here as a professor thinking about, wait a minute, university life is supposed to be about academics. And I have not heard anything about academics today.
I do try to remind our students that we are an academic institution. That's good. But that's mostly in conduct policy violation.
But that's not why. Yeah. But that's not why I said that, Zach. I think if I can toot the horn of Olivet here a little bit, this is who we are as a university, and I think it's amazing that students come to us. And while we want to help them be experts in the field in which they want to study and help challenge them academically and push them to be the very best they can be, that's not all what we're about. And the fact that we care, I love that Olivet's hired you guys to care about the whole student. And that the goal for us as a university is that students come out of here great in their field, but deep lovers of Jesus in the process. And so thank you for what you're doing in that journey. So let's continue. So share with us what you see God doing on campus at Olivet around the concept of blessing others.
Yeah, I think as we talked about this idea of like listen, we're hitting that point in the semester where my RAs are being able to really see what are the needs of the people around us. I think the next step, like, so we talked about like see, value, know, care. We want to see them and see who they are and make sure they know that they're just not a number, but we actually kind of like see them as individuals and that we value them, that's founded in what Jesus did. I try to convince the RAs over RA training, the value that your resident has is not determined by you, but by what happened on a cross 2,000 years ago. Yeah. And so, and then knowing them is, again, getting to like really know their story deeply, who they are. But then as we seek to care about them, that some tangible things start to come across as prayer requests are being made known, as heartache, as they share their stories, as well as just the ups and downs of college life. I mean, it will never, ever surprise me just what all of our students are going through at all times. Like even the students where things are going really, really well, or they think it's going well, or we can, on the outside, it looks like it's going well. Sometimes it's stuff at home. Sometimes it's mental health. Sometimes it's not being able to pay for school and kind of struggling with those things. There's relationships amongst friends, significant others, all that stuff. So it can just be really difficult. And really, I think, honestly, the burden of the B.L.E.S.S series is you have to do something with it. You can't, it's a blessing in that, but it calls you to something. And asking RAs to step into, okay, what do you start to care about now? Like if you've heard their story, if you listened to their story, if you saw them, what does that mean for you now? And what are those next steps? And it can be as simple as, I mean, the other day we had a resident who was, my RA is saying, he was just hacking up a lung down the hallway, and it got maybe a little bit annoying. But he just went and bought some like Dayquil, NyQuil, and like dropped it outside of his front door and just left it there. Of just like, what are some tangible needs as easy as that? Paying for meals for students who don't want to eat at the dining hall but can't afford to go off campus, like things here or there, but also like directing them to other areas of support on campus. And I think when I think of what God is doing on this campus, I've really seen students be really responsive to what God is doing. That's kind of been like the word we've seen this year. One of the other people we work with, Braxton, he went into the year going, I just feel like God's going to do something. I really think he is. which is such a funny thing to say, because of course he is, but he was right. I mean, like at the first couple chapels of the semester, we saw students being really responsive to what God is doing in their lives. And so I think, there's just hundreds of different stories of what that does look like. But one of the main things is, and one of the most powerful chapels is like, we talk about in listening to others of like the story they tell themselves, is a lot of students were letting go of a story they've always told themselves, whatever that may look like.
Yeah.
And so proactively caring for them in those times as they wrestle with that is, how can I affirm of the real story that they're participating in about a creation being made good again, and being reconciled back to Christ. And so, yeah, it's been great. I don't mean to ramble on, but it's been absolutely fantastic year.
You mentioned chapel. What's our chapel theme this year?
No, it's blessed. Yeah, it's been a little annoying. I'm not going to lie. It is.
It's kind of everywhere.
That really was not planned, right?
No.
So we've talked about this before, Lindsey, this idea that God kind of works on you on a particular theme or something going on in your life, and then everywhere you turn, you seem to see that repeated over and over. You hear it in a sermon, you hear it in a song on the radio, you go to a small group Bible study, and all of a sudden they're talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think this B.L.E.S.S thing has kind of been that for me this year. This semester, being on sabbatical, not even being on campus, but here we are doing this B.L.E.S.S thing in chapel, and then of course we're doing the B.L.E.S.S series at the church where I'm serving, and I'm in a small group for it, and here we are talking about it here. Yeah. So,
well, Lindsey would always say the Spirit is always.
It's always moving, always uniting.
And always unifying and uniting. And that's what's really cool.
Yes. Good. And I love it when God plays connect the dots, because he does always have something for us. And so sometimes he just has to get our attention a few times.
So Abby, what are you seeing on campus as this is in process?
Yeah, not to say Zach and I did an amazing job on the training committee, but I think we equipped our RAs so well that just this past week, actually, again, a little God thing, but the past week we had an area team meeting. So all of the freshman dorms met together, and at the end of it, Braxton again was saying, what's something good? What's something good you've seen? What's something good you've heard, been a part of? And we had RAs constantly raising their hands. And some of the examples were, one of the residents received their first Bible, and one of the residents decided to get baptized. One of the residents gave their life to Christ on a one-on-one. These residents are asking questions about the faith they grew up with, and they're like, I'm not sure if I want to continue on this path, because I see that this path that you guys are laying out for me looks so beautiful and enticing with the Lord that should I jump to this path? And it's just been so beautiful of empowering RAs again to just have these conversations, to just listen, and hear where our students have been coming from and where they want to go. And our RAs don't leave them in that. They do, connect them with those resources, or they push them to talk to Tone, our chaplain, or they talk to our RDs, or anyone else in spiritual life. And it's just been, again, so beautiful to see the residents just coming to life, coming to true life. And again, this freshman class is just so social that they're all sharing it, and they're doing worship nights, and they're doing
so amazing.
Yes, they're having conversations about it, and it just feels like the start of maybe like a revolution, like it's a change, and something good is happening this year. And I think that we're seeing the faces of it this year, because they see and they know that something good is out there, and they just maybe haven't discovered it yet, but we are able to be the vessels to like show them what that good is, and where that true fruit comes from.
That's incredible. Well, thank you both so much for just sharing just your hearts around campus and around the students here. And we know that as RDs, we're all committed to creating a family culture wherever we live and serve. And that means we're in the ups and we're in the downs and we're in everything in between. We're family, right? And today, most of our listeners are parents that are out there listening to our podcast to be encouraged as they raise their kids and their students to know and love Jesus. And so I'm just interested to know from both of you today, what kind of takeaway or advice would you give to parents raising kids, raising teens, especially raising one day a college student that may come to a campus like ours? What kind of advice or takeaways would you give to them about how you might fit living a blessed life together into your busy schedule? I think for all of us as RDs with our students, I don't know anyone busier than a college student. I mean, they have so much coming at them. And so maybe even thinking of it from that point of view of how can parents with kids, with teens, find time to practice some of these concepts we've been talking about? Whoever can start.
Yeah, sure. Disclaimer, Abby and I are like in our 20s and don't have kids. So take this for what you will.
But we are married, so we have that, extra.
We're not, Abby and I aren't married, but we each have spouses, correct? Yeah. So just
Thank
passing
you for the
on to Jacob for you.
clarification.
But you're good.
Thanks for that clarification.
No problem. How funny would that be, like living in two separate dorms kind of a thing?
Really weird.
Yeah, really weird, yeah. But I would say like the one thing that I will say, like someone always says, like, what's a successful college student do? I would say they have high level of executive function. Like they can take care of themselves and stuff like that. That's totally a separate aside thing. But if you're thinking about how do I want to raise my kid? Yes, in the way of Jesus. Yes, all this stuff, but also able to like do their own laundry as well. But Abby will pick it up with the freshmen to help with that if needed. But I would say, we've talked about creating spaces for listening. I think what is so hard, I do this myself when I'm leading, like if I'm leading someone, I want to be able to like fill in the blanks for them or to give them the right answers or to tell them what they should do. And again, that also takes out the executive function as they're wrestling with the thing that they're doing. And so what I like to hopefully do in my best leadership with college students is helping them ask the right questions that they're processing, and then giving them a space where I'm like being a feedback wall for that, or being able to help them process those things. So parents, I know one of the fears my parents had is, are you going to call us when you go to college? Like, are you ever going to call home? And I just think like if we're creating the spaces where it's safe to be able to listen to what your kid is going through, not to correct all the time, not to always give advice even, but just to be like, this is a safe space where you can process these things. One of the things I notice all the time with our college students is I'll ask them, who are you processing these things with as you're struggling with these things? Like, I don't know if I have anyone like friends or family that could really, like, I know they care about me. Like, I so know they care about me. I know they love me. I know people back from church love me. I know those things, but like, I just don't know if like they'll fully listen to what I'm saying and if maybe they'll judge me in that. And there's some fear there. And so we've talked about, like Abby said, they've been so open with us. They've been so open. And so I just encourage parents to like start. Yes, there's correction that needs to be made. There's guidance that needs to be made because you have kids of all ages and different phases of life. But especially as they start to get to like junior high and high school, if you can be a space where they feel safe to just process all the ups and downs of their life, I think would be just really, really helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like you're recommending listening for the sake of listening.
Yeah.
Rather than always giving advice, always directing and correcting. Yeah,
because it obviously as parents, as older, like you do know more as a 28-year-old leading 18 to 22-year-olds. I have like 6 more years of knowledge at times, and maybe 6 more years of wisdom if at best. But like it doesn't always mean it's going to apply directly to their situation. I also have to recognize I don't know everything that's happening, and so one of the things we do face with college students at times is like their parents only see them like at holidays. And so as they're processing changing over the course of their freshman year, it's like, wait, who is this new person? Or the student's like, my mom was expecting me to do this, but I did this. Like they don't understand how much I'm changing, or those kind of things as they're taking on their faith looks a little bit different as they're owning those things. And those are difficult things. Like I can't imagine being like my mom, like seeing me a couple times a year and then senior year I show up and go, hey, I think I'm going to get engaged. Like that had to be crazy for her. She didn't like, those things are difficult. And so I totally empathetic with the struggles that parents kind of go through in sending their kids to college, because it's such a different phase of life for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really cool that we get to see them through all these changes. And a lot of times I love to tell my residents, I'm like, call your parents.
Yeah.
Like, tell them that you're changing your major. Tell them you don't have the same roommate. Like, all of these big and little things. Because they don't think about it. But I think sometimes, and I know my mom was this way, and I love my mom very much, but sometimes she was a little overbearing because she missed me. And I think a lot of times, like, kids don't get that. Like our residents don't get that.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things to tell my RAs, and I think this very much applies to parents, is everyone's got to eat, right? Everyone has to have a meal at least once a day. And I think that's just one of the best times that you actually just sit down and you get to listen. Mm-hmm. You get to hear what your people are saying. You get to hear your kids during that time. Parents, you get to talk. But it's a chance for all of you to just sit down, have a conversation, and then you can go about your day. But as my RAs, I'm like, well, your residents has to eat. So if you want to talk to them, invite them to a meal. Yeah. And I just think that fits perfectly with how do you fit anything in your life? You got to have a meal. So.
Yeah, I love that. And we've talked about that before here on the podcast, haven't we, Leon?
We have, yeah.
The power of meal times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how just creating that space to listen and to connect, it goes a long, long way. Mm-hmm. Well, Zach and Abby, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
This is going on my resume. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great hearing from you guys. And so for you, our listeners, maybe a challenge for you today, and that is, how can you be a blessing to someone in your life today, particularly your kids? So here's our challenge. Make a list of those who God has placed on your heart that don't know the Lord yet and who you want to be praying for, and start praying for them. And I would encourage you to put your kids on that list, and then listen and learn their story. And there may be stories about your kids that you don't know, things that have happened at school, on the bus, in their children's department, or out on the playground, whatever those may be. So learn to listen to them. And then, of course, as you're eating, be intentional about making those important times where they can share with you what's happening in their lives. And then maybe this is a hard one for parents, maybe not. Serve your kids. We're used to kind of like doing stuff for them, but actually serving them and making them a priority. Of course, we do that. And then when the time is right, share your story with them. Do your kids know how God has transformed your life, what he has done in your life before they were around, and even since they have been around? And all this takes time, so don't be in a hurry. Remember, it's not a program. It's about loving people in the name of Jesus. You can do it because he will be with you through it. And as you are a blessing to others, may God bless you, keep you, and give you peace. You've been listening to the Faith Together podcast from the Center for Faith and Family at Olivet Nazarene University. Sign up for additional resources at centerff.com. When building faith, we are better together.